Alright, so I don't have much time today. I have to talk about things really fast. It won't be 20 minutes long, it will be probably less than 10 minutes. I'll just start talking. First thing I want to say is that the idea that you should wake up the same uh, time every day, the same minute, like 6 a.m., is insane. That's just insane. And if you think about it, it really makes sense to expect your body to have you know sometimes a longer time sleeping and a shorter time sleeping. It's very intuitive to think it as a fluctuation that depends on a lot of factors. For example, how tired are you today? How tired were you yesterday, and how tired how tiring, how stressful was this week. um, it can be a lot of things that go into that. So the sanity comes from the idea of a bad time instead of a time to get out of bed. The sanity is related to the idea of going to bed a fixed time every day. Like if you have to wake up 7 o'clock, and if you usually sleep like 8 hours a day, then it should probably make sense to you to be in bed uh, by 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. Right? And okay, so that's one thing. The next thing I want to talk about is the idea that you should have to do stuff that you dislike. For example, the idea that you have to do physical exercise when you take no pleasure out of it, or for example, you want a really good job and it's possible for you to get that job, and you don't really want it. Well, like people, people like maybe they talk to you about this job, and they think it suits you, and you should pursue it. It doesn't make sense to sacrifice like 2 years of your life being miserable only to get that job, even if it's possible. And it doesn't really make sense. It's like selling your soul. It's like gaining the world, like $10,000 salary, $10,000 salary a month. That's $120,000 a year. Um, it sounds nice, but essentially comes with a lot of suffering. If the job is so hard to get, it's probably also a very stressful job. You should only get what you're comfortable with. That's the second thing that goes with sanity. Uh, and I can talk about some example. Like, when I was a kid, my parents had the brilliant idea of making me do some exercise, like playing tennis, um, having some tennis classes, and most of all, the most the most traumatizing, the most um, you know the most seemed like something that I would really hate was swimming classes, and I'd love to skip one of those classes. I would love, probably that's because that's the reason why I like rain, because when it rains I don't have to go to the swimming class. That's me as a kid, and I still like rain to this day. Right? Not so much, I guess. um, the teacher had the idea that you go there and you have to obey his orders, and his orders are often very uncomfortable. He asks a very hard introductive exercise, like for example, 10 laps. Um, that goes like 1 mile of swimming. The moment you get on water, that's you have to go 1 mile swimming and you have to go as fast as possible. That's just crazy. And I don't remember feeling any different health wise, but I do remember that when I was able to do it with more pleasure, and when I was free to choose the exercise, it seems to have some benefits, like some, at least some psychological benefits, and they were noticeable even for people around me, and they would notice that, wow man, you're different. It's like you have some kind of exercise routine going on that changes the way you think. If you know what I'm talking about, you probably have something like this. You probably had like an exercise that really made you feel different, and it's like your mind becomes more reliable, and the idea of discipline comes from that, comes from the pleasure of physical exercise, not the pain. And okay, so that's the other topic. Next topic is about philosophy, and I want to discuss something that sounds like what was described as a sign of decline in the civilization. It's it's something that's called second religion, and I think that something that fits this criteria is Buddhism. For example, Buddhism growing on the west side of the United States, or some circles, some New Age circles and stuff. It's natural to have a curiosity for other religions. It's probably beneficial in the long run. But I want to make it clear that Buddhism and Christianity are very different. Buddhism is essentially atheistic. It does assumes karma, but it assumes it in a very inconsistent way, right? And a core belief in Buddhism is that life is suffering, and the promise of Buddha is that is nirvana, and nirvana is the end of a circle of life. For example, imagine that you are born as a farmer in a poor area in India, and then you die there, and then you are born again as a merchant in a city, a big city in India. And it doesn't have to be modern times merchant. It could be ancient. And then you die there. Somehow you were born again as a nobleman, as one of the priest's caste, or the ruling military castes. And the idea there is that the next thing that's going to happen eventually is that you won't be born again. You will die forever, and that's the end of a circle of life and death. And it's based on the idea that life is suffering, right? And for example, you would hear that Buddha found nirvana, but what happens actually is that Buddha found something like a relief, but he also found the conclusion that life is suffering. He found that, but at the same time that he was on that tree meditating, and he wasn't really in a nirvana state, because, for example, the way he died was a very painful death. If I'm not correct, he died of poisoning or something like probably an allergy, and we don't know by the translation if it's something like pork, or if it's something like a mushroom that he ate. And he had a rule that you should never deny a food that is offered to you, which is very, very dumb. What's more important, the food or the body? The food or the soul? The body or the soul, right? There's a hierarchy of importance. And then he died with diarrhea. Seriously, he did die like that. And it's fair to say that from also other accounts that Buddha wasn't nearly close to nirvana. He still lived, and he this was one of the noble truths, like that life is suffering. And it's not about like life has suffering; it's life is suffering. They have that the differentiation, and it's just the opposite of Christianity. Christianity is about understanding the, is about being spiritually rich, and you when you're spiritually rich, you are very happy. And so the promise of Christ is that of eternal life, right? So it's like the opposite. It's the opposite, and even their uh, practice are somewhat the opposite. Um, in Christianity, you have prayer, and prayer is a repetition of words and uses the intellect and stuff. While in meditation, you have the idea of silence, and you have the idea of slowing your breath and breathing very slowly, and basically not talking, not using your intellect. You may say that, oh man, I'm sure that meditation increases something in the intellect. Yeah, maybe it increases the ability to focus on your breath for like 20 minutes. Um, Maybe, I'm not sure. Even if that's the case, you really need to know that you're getting to something without knowing almost nothing about it. When you start to meditate, you just don't know anything about it. You just believe stuff people tell you, and you can go ahead and waste a lot of your time on that. Um, I think that if you were only to be one of those hippies and new agers, you would probably be better off. Um, it makes more sense to be a hedonist than a Buddhist. Buddhism is a death cult, and that's the probably the last idea I want to talk about in this video. What is a death cult? So the problem here is that, funnily enough, death cults are not exclusive to Buddhism. There are many, and there are many even in Christianity, because of the different and crazy interpretations that people make from the holy texts that they receive. For example, some people believe that that you have to die like a martyr. Some people believe that you can't have money. Some people believe that you can't laugh and cannot be happy and stuff. And these are all Protestants' ideas. I have this late insight that people who are thin are likely to be depressed. That's my idea. And people who are fat are likely to be bipolar. And the happy type is the healthy, beautiful, muscular type that you see. And of course, for example, if you're talking about someone who is muscular and angry and sad, this person is probably skinnier than he would be, or he's probably fatter than he would be if he wasn't, bipolar or depressed. There isn't even a word for this state. There's a word for bipolar and there's a word for depressed, but there's if you talk about maniac, it has a negative connotation to it. If you talk about euphoric, it also cares, like people don't really understand what you're talking about. You may talk about mentally resilient, right? The idea that you have a strong mind but a weak body is wrong, in my opinion. The way I see someone who is thin is like someone who doesn't even have the desire to eat food, and he doesn't really care about sensations and pleasures and stuff. Someone who is fat is like someone who has the desire to eat food, but doesn't like stops there. Someone who stops there, and okay, I've eaten some food, so now I'm sad. So that's why I call it bipolar. And someone who's muscular is and strong and smart is like someone that eats a lot, because that's how you get muscular, by the way, and is also not suddenly sad after eating. And that's a crazy idea, but I know that some people know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that the laziness that people get. Oh, okay, and they just stay there. They just don't pursue any desires more. So I guess today's topics were fun, and hopefully I'll be able to upload this today. It's Sunday here. All right. So that's it for today. Have fun.